Hi there, and welcome to the Pearls from My Mom podcast. Every mom has special pearls of wisdom she passes on to her kids. In this podcast, we'll be talking about those pearls of wisdom, as well as the life lessons that our moms have passed down to us. We will be sharing to keep the legacy alive. Hello, and welcome to the Pearls from My Mom podcast. My name's Jessie. I'm your host. Thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in. And I can't wait till you hear the interview today. I'm talking with special guest Charles Kelly, and he is from the Something Random podcast, which is a comedy podcast. And that means that the tone of this interview is a bit lighter than I think the other episodes that I've put out there, but I think it's great. He has used humor to be able to deal with the passing of his mom, which obviously is a pretty heavy subject matter and a terribly tragic thing. So I hope you enjoyed the tone today. It's a bit lighter, and let's get going. Hey, Charles, how are you?
I am doing okay. I wouldn't say early. It's early for somebody who works in media. Whenever I talk to my theater or my film friends, they're always like, "Oh man, I had to wake up at 11 o'clock."
Oh.
I'm like, that's terrible. But it's 9 o'clock where I'm at, so it's a little early for us theater kids.
All right, so it might take us a while to get woken up here, I guess, huh?
Yeah, I've got like we were talking a little bit before. I have a little bit of caffeine in me. It's starting to kick in. I think like halfway through the podcast when I start like you'll hear some audible shakes in my desk. That's when the coffee like really sinks in. So I think we'll be good there.
I'll have a warning. It's about to get crazy up in here then.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, perfect. So I'm so happy that you're doing this. You're actually the first man on the Pearls podcast.
Wow.
I know. I'm very excited that you're here.
Yeah. I'll have to bring some of my other comedy friends with dead moms.
That's perfect. We love that.
We all just hang out and just talk about dead moms. So I'll just bring all my guy friends on. We'll do like a group dead mom podcast.
That'd be perfect.
Yeah.
We were talking, Charles and I were talking before we pushed the record button here. And, Charles is a comedian. He's very funny. And
that's debatable. Let's be real here. I think I'm funny. I don't know about other people.
It's all subjective. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
But we were talking about how, we do use humor, and I use humor. My mom's only been gone for 2 years, and I try to use humor, but I know that sometimes it makes people that are they don't have the same sense of humor that I do. It makes them uncomfortable. But we're not going to try to say anything terrible here today. But it's a little bit lighter than a normal episode, which I'm totally into. I hope you guys enjoy it because I'm already enjoying myself so far.
Mm-hmm.
So perfect. So let's jump right in, Charles. I want you to tell us about your mom. What kind of person was your mom?
My mom. Okay, so there's a bit. This is this is one of those questions where I like to do a before and after, because the person it's kind of weird saying, but the person that I thought my mom was beforehand and the person that I thought my mom was after she had died were two different people, I feel like.
Okay.
And that's kind of strange to say, but I hope it'll make sense once I kind of get into this. But before my mom died, I thought she was kind of an incredible woman. She did deal with some she was an alcoholic, so she dealt with that. But she was also a teacher. She worked at the local college. She taught medical classes. She was consistently trying to better people and better students and trying to help people learn. And she was always, I would say she worked so hard to make sure that people learn. And that's incredible. And so I thought beforehand, my mom was this like incredible person who had some problems here and there. And that's how I felt about my mom before she died. So.
Okay, so that's that's a tough thing, and it's interesting because I usually end up talking with women, like I told you before.
Right.
And being a woman, I understand the relationship with moms and daughters are usually pretty complicated, at least at some point. Like my mom and I did, and I think people listen to my story, they think everything was like really rosy. And towards the end it was. I absolutely appreciated my mom, loved her, showed her as much as I could. But
right.
There was a time where it was pretty complicated. So I'm kind of interested to find out now. I know we're going to get into, what you learned about her after her death, but how was your relationship with her when she was alive?
it was hit or miss. I think the relationship between my mom and I were strained. I was kind of a hooligan in my late teens,
Mhm.
so she kind of had to deal with that. And then I had moved back in with her right before she died, and uh, so I don't think I don't think she was. I don't know. It's kind of hard. I can't really ask her at this point to see if she was okay with me moving back in with her when I was 25. But um, uh, we right at the end we had a great relationship, and it was uh, but there was a lot of straining, with drug addiction, with her drug addiction,
Mhm.
dealing with that kind of stuff. I had to deal with that and deal with like some serious problems when I was 11 and 12. And so like trying to deal with that as a 12-year-old, trying to deal with walking my mom through shards of glass to try to get her sober as somebody who is so young. Once I was in my late teens and early 20s, I didn't feel like they were like my mom and my dad, and we're not talking about my dad, but I feel like they weren't really my family. The people around me were my family,
Hmm.
and that was hard to deal with on that side. And that tumultuous relationship was something that had to be dealt with, and I'm glad that we did, because being on good terms with somebody when they die is kind of rare
Mhm.
from what I hear. Everybody always regrets the relationship they were in. My aunt, who my mom's sister,
Mhm.
consistently talks, when we talk about it, about how she regrets that they weren't in a better place when my mom died. And it's just like I'm so glad that I was able to be in a good relationship with her by the time that she died. And that's horrible to say, but I'm like, yes, that's a plus one for me.
Well, I don't think it's horrible to say. Like, you're describing something that had to be really difficult. Being 11, 12, I mean, that is like for everybody. I don't know anybody that was like, oh, that was the awesome time in my life. Like, it was,
Right? Oh yeah.
you're like changing and physically and mentally. And it's like to try to do that and then to try to also help your parent through something so strenuous. I mean, like, I can't even imagine. So, I don't think it's terrible to say at all. It's, you got to a good place and it sounds like you're at peace with that. And that's, I guess, really all you could ask for, like,
Yeah.
well, I mean, so is good to hear, actually. So just so we have like a little bit of context, how long has your mom been gone?
On October 11th. So I don't know exactly when this podcast is going to be released. I don't know if it's like this week, next week, or what. But October 11th is going to be the 4-year anniversary. 4 years, yeah.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So it's pretty new. A lot of times when I talk to people, it's been, several years. It takes them a while to get to talk about it. So
Right.
I mean, were you, it's for me, it's been 2 years and, the day after she died, I was like ready to talk to people about it.
Yeah, that's kind of how I was kind of forced to talk about it right off the bat.
Mhm.
The situation that happened was, I was living with her at the time,
Mhm.
due to some financial problems, and then she died, and within a week we had to uh, bring in all the family, sell the house, do a giant garage sale, get rid of everything, because we didn't have space for it. So in that week, I was kind of forced to not only do like communicate with my family about trying to sell this house and trying to get everything figured out, but also work as well. I run a video production business, and we work with live theater, and we film live theater is a big part of our business. That weekend, so she died on Friday,
Mhm.
Thursday or Friday. I think it was a Thursday night, Friday. And then on Sunday, I was forced to record a musical.
Wow.
So it was like already off the bat, I was forced to work. I was forced to talk about it, and everybody wanted to talk about it, and that's just how people outside of the situation try to deal with it in their own way and try to be positive and helping.
Mhm.
And it helped, and it didn't in its own ways. And yeah, so that's I was kind of forced into talking about it. I still feel like um I'm still going through the grieving process.
Mhm.
There are some people in my life who have been, and they're not in my life anymore, but they're like, oh, it's been 6 months since your mom died. Why aren't you over this? And it's like, all right, come on, dude.
Yeah.
Let's be real here. That's not how people deal with things.
No, not at all. No, I
No.
mean, that's incredibly intense that like you had to, sell the house and get, like inform the family and all of that stuff. I take it she didn't know that she was like, had she been getting her stuff in order, or she didn't know that she was going to pass?
It was all of a sudden. So I'll let's just be completely blunt. My mom died of a drug overdose. She died of she had been taking quite a bit of extra opiates to deal with some serious pain that she was dealing with.
Mhm.
And she was addicted to opiates at the end. Apparently, she was really kind of taking those. Um, so that's I don't know if it was that and then a combination of alcohol as well, or if it was just the opiates, but she died all of a sudden. So the night before, she was laughing, playing games with one of her friends, and then that night, about 2 o'clock in the morning, is when I found out that she had passed.
Okay, so you didn't have any time to prepare, like
Ooh,
yourself or
it was just ripping that band-aid off. And I talked to some of my friends, and I am so glad on it, like for my end of things, that it happened so suddenly.
Mhm.
uh i I couldn't imagine having somebody deal with this over time, just like that slow crawl to death. I don't think that I could handle that.
Mhm.
And I'm glad that it and like looking back on it, I'm glad that it was the way it was.
Sure. It's interesting because, like, my mom, she was diagnosed with cancer, and in 8 months she was gone. And I
Uh-huh.
actually wrote a blog post that said, I felt lucky that she had been diagnosed as terminally ill because I did feel like I got to tie up everything with her, and I had time
Right.
with her myself. And I was always curious to see about people, who are on the other end of the spectrum. But like,
Mhm.
I think, I guess if there's one good thing about cancer that you could possibly say is that it's awful. And by the time it's done, you feel relieved for that person.
Yeah, and I mean that's when I talk about comedy, and I do some bits here and there, and I talk about like one of my go-to jokes is, I'm kind of glad my mom died, and I go off on that and do a little tangent, but it's true. I'm glad that, that pain, that the problems that they were having are over, and I'm glad that that relief feeling is kind of there. It's I think it's kind of interesting that you felt that relief from 8 months of cancer, and I felt that relief after this as well. That's kind of interesting that both sides of this spectrum kind of feel the same thing.
Well, it sounds like your mom was, ill in a way, like
Yeah,
she had, and so, I guess I could.
right. It was a lot more hidden at the end. Um it caught me by surprise, to be real, that she had been taking a lot of drugs. I know that she had a lot of pain
Mhm.
from like problems with dental work, that kind of stuff. But I wasn't under the impression that it was uh as bad of a situation as it was.
Mhm.
And that kind of goes into the whole story of like the before and after. She was really good at hiding things about her life and about like life in general from my brother and myself. And I thank her for that. And I think because there's a lot more on the back end of things about her life that I'm glad that she didn't bring into our lives.
Oh, I can imagine. So,
Yeah.
you want to share with us, like, what are, because you said it, it was like there was the before and the after. Like, what did you learn about her after? You don't have to get into specifics or anything like that. If you,
Uh, it, I learned that my family has a bit more of a soap opera uh, lifestyle.
Mhm.
I think this is fine to say. Don't think, honestly. I doubt any of my family is going to listen to this podcast, so I think I'm in the clear. If they do, I'll deal with it on the back end.
Sure, sure.
But she she had been addicted to some harder drugs when she was younger. She actually was dating my uncle before she started dating my dad. So she and my uncle were in rehab together, and they were dating in there. And then she broke up with my uncle and started dating my dad, and got married to my dad. Had me and my brother,
Mhm.
and yeah. So it's all these things that I have learned, like that, and a lot of other things that I'm not going to go into on the podcast, but a lot of like bits of information that I had never known and my family had never brought up with me
Mhm.
when she was alive. And I'm honestly, I'm kind of glad about that.
Mhm.
It's kind of intriguing to learn about it after the fact, and I'm glad that that wasn't brought up when I was a kid. If that was brought up and I was dealing with the alcoholism at 12 years old, plus dealing with the fact that my mom and my uncle were dating at some point, I don't know if I could handle that
Yeah, that would have been
at 12 years old.
too much for sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's, I mean, I think every family has some side of soap opera-ness. I mean, like, it's funny because you see families, and especially with social media and stuff today, everybody's putting on and I do it too, but like, you put all the good pictures up and you don't put all the, weird, twisted stuff. But like most families have something that's weird and twisted. So,
Oh yeah. Yeah, and you know what? Talking about that, I've tried to make a habit of not doing the positivity on Facebook. I mean, like trying to promote who I am in a correct light.
mhm.
And I think that's helping. And I mean, like, this is something that I'm helping my friends with who are dealing with depression, dealing with that kind of stuff. And just we, with social media, everybody has this uh, hyper positivity and fake positivity,
Mhm.
even if they're dealing with some serious stuff. And um, this is something that I'm recommending to a lot of people nowadays, is to be honest with who you are. If you're having a rough day, if you're dealing with serious stuff, you don't have to like say it and be dramatic about it, but say, hey, this is not a good time in my life. If anybody can, if you believe in prayer, that kind of stuff, if you want to send some fuzzy feelings my way, that kind of stuff, because it also helps other people who are dealing with these stuff that feel alone because they feel like everybody is so hyper positive. And yeah, I always recommend to people, be honest on social media. But that's a digression. That's way beyond the point. We're talking about dead moms here. Let's get back to the point,
Get
Charles.
back to that. But I mean, I think, you did hit the nail on the head. I that's the whole reason I started this, was just so that people didn't feel alone, because it's
Hmm.
it's super sad. Like, it's the worst possible thing that could probably happen in your life.
Yeah.
So, I wanted to try to help that. So you have a brother, you said.
Yes, I've got a brother.
Is he older or young?
I'm the older brother.
You're the older
He's,
brother.
he's
So,
3 years and 3 months young.
oh, that's like same, me and my sister. I'm the younger one.
Oh, nice.
So, do you guys help each other? Like, have you?
I love my brother. We've never had a really close relationship, and that's uh, I'll talk to him every couple months, but it just I don't know. Like, my internal monologue thinks that he kind of blames me for my mom's death, and I know that's probably not what he actually believes.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's never been we've never been close. It's always been hard for us as siblings to kind of be there for each other. He also lives across the country. He lives in Virginia with my dad, so
It's not easy to. I mean, I'm in
yeah.
Canada.
I mean, and don't get me wrong, he's such a talented, strong individual, and he's hilarious. And when we talk, it's great. But it's kind of hard for us to have those conversations. And I feel like he's probably thinking the same way. It's like, oh, you know what, my brother's great, but we just don't talk because it's just hard for us to do that.
Sure. Well, that makes sense. I'm just curious.
So
So why tell her story now? I mean, like, what you actually contacted me, which I think is awesome, and I'm so happy to
yeah,
do that. But what drew you to want to talk about your mom's story? And
I don't. Well, it's a few different reasons. I think that there's a lot of stories where when I hear about like people passing away and this, that we have a tendency of getting um, rose tinted glasses about their lives, and that's okay. And I think that's totally fine. But I think it's also so important for us to realize and accept the crap in life, and to kind of move on. And when we like like have such a fake positive view about a person's life, I feel it affects us in a negative way. Um, when I see my family, and I know they mean the best and they're trying to do good things, but I personally feel, and this is it can be kind of cynical. But I feel like they're not doing my mom and the person justice by not talking about, in my mom's case, the alcoholism, drug addiction, talking about these things because that's part of who she was.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like, it's not who she was. It's not the main aspect of who she was, but she struggled through this and she persevered through drug addiction, through all this stuff. And when you have people, and I listen to these stories all the time about like, oh, they remove all the crap to just talk about the good things, but how did they get to those good places? Is because of, like, for my mom's case, it's so much more interesting of a story to say, hey, my mom was addicted to drugs, but she was always consistently trying to help people as well, like dealing with her own demons, but also kind of taking on others is so much more of an intriguing story to me as a storyteller and as somebody who likes to hear interesting stories.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also helped me with like the realism of what's actually happening. And yeah,
I think,
if that makes
oh,
sense.
I think it totally does. I think that's important. And it is hard because, like, I'm flipping through the pictures and yeah, there was some stuff about my mom that wasn't awesome, just as everybody has. But
Yeah, and nobody's perfect. And I mean, that's the thing is it. Yeah, no, go ahead. I interrupted.
no, you're so right. But the struggles that we go through are things that help us become, the people that we are and help us become better and stronger. Like, I don't know anybody that's just like a straight up above board awesome person throughout their whole entire life. And then,
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, like, to be incredible, you kind of have to go through some hard times. And so I think that's excellent. I think that's a great reason to want to tell her story. So do you have any stories about her? I know that, like, it seems like there was a lot of, I mean, she was going through a lot for sure throughout your childhood. But do you have any stories or favorite memories of her?
Yes.
Okay.
And I was thinking about this, and I'm probably going to cry here.
Well,
I'll get a little teary. I'm already getting a little teary, so this is going to be great. But when I was in high school, my mom would help me because I was a theater kid. I was in choir. I was in that kind of stuff. The choir would do like concerts. I mean, they would work at concerts. So we would work at the Budweiser Center that's right here in Fort Collins, Loveland. It's right, and we would work behind the scenes cooking the food to help raise money for concerts, that kind of stuff.
mm-hmm.
And my mom and I would always go do that because not only do we help the school and help the choir and stuff like that, but we would see like really incredible concerts as well.
Mm-hmm.
So on the other side of things, my mom was in love and addicted to everything Bob Dylan.
Okay. That's awesome.
So yeah, there was a concert at, I believe it was the Budweiser Center. It may have been the Laurie Center here in Fort Collins. I can't remember exactly where it was at. But we weren't as a group scheduled to work that concert, and my mom's like, I have to go see Bob Dylan. I have to do this. So the choir director got in touch with everybody. We got scheduled to do that show, and my mom was not working at all the entire time where she was supposed to, which kind of sucked because it was one less person to help out behind the scenes. But to see her listen to Bob Dylan live again was incredible. And then at the end of the show, one of my close friends, Justin,
mm-hmm.
he's handicapped and he can't walk downstairs. So we were told to take the elevator, which goes down and behind the stage.
Mm-hmm.
And we did this before the show was over, like right before the show was over, so we could get out of the show before everybody else was done. So we were downstairs and they're like, oh, we need you guys to stop really quick. The band's going to come on out. And the high-pitched noise that my mom made, the squeal that came out of my mom when Bob Dylan walked backstage and addressed her and said, thank you for coming to the show, was probably so high-pitched that only dogs could hear it at that point. And it was so incredible. And she talked about it. Oh, I hit my microphone. I apologize.
Right.
She talked about it consistently until uh, until she passed away. And it's one of my favorite stories to tell because it was such a positive thing, and see her meet her idol was great.
Oh yeah, that sounds amazing. That sounds.
Yeah.
I would tell that story too. For like, I'd be like, I'd like meet new people, and I'd be like, "Nice to meet you. Thank you for coming and checking my meter. Did you hear about the time that I met Bob Dylan?"
Right. Yeah. That's a great thing. It's like, hi, my name is Charles Kelly. I met Bob Dylan one day,
Yeah,
and yeah,
that's awesome. I think that's a great memory. That's a
it's a great memory. And I mean, I, it's funny to say that a majority of the memories that I have of my mom are Bob Dylan based,
mhm.
but that's who she was. She was in love with Bob Dylan. We would go and get classic Bob Dylan vinyls. We would like new albums of Bob Dylan. If they were released on vinyl, we would go and search at local stores to try to find them. We would go see Bob Dylan together. I would sneak her the Bob Dylan Christmas album. By the way, if you haven't heard the Bob Dylan Christmas album, it's wonderful. And it's not even like sarcastic. Like everybody's like, "Oh, Bob Dylan has a Christmas album." It's great. It's fun. I highly recommend it.
All right.
That's actually what I'm plugging this week is the Bob Dylan Christmas album.
What you're doing,
So,
okay. That sounds awesome. I'm totally into Bob Dylan, and I
yeah.
love Christmas, and so bam, two things right there. I'm into it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. So, the show is called Pearls from My Mom, and it's basically, I wanted to get the pearls of wisdom that my mom had given me throughout her life out there. And she had a lot of
Right.
cliche things that I don't know if moms say this to their son. You know what? I have a son and I say these things to him, so I guess they do. But, just stuff like if he can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all, that kind of stuff. And there were deeper pearls of wisdom that she had given me about how to live my life. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a phrase, but what do you think the best advice your mom ever gave you, or the best pearl of wisdom that you took away from her life was?
I would say that overall, the best piece of advice that she gave me is tattooed on my wrist.
Okay.
I have a greater than or equal to sign tattooed on my wrist.
Okay.
And there's an Ernest Hemingway quote where he talks about how true nobility is not being better than other people, but that true nobility is being better than one's previous self. And that's paraphrasing a little bit. I don't think I have the quote memorized, but that alone is something that my parents in general and my mom specifically tried to remind me consistently that it's not about being better than Jeff down the road. It's not being better than the Joneses. It's trying to consistently better yourself every day. And if you can say tomorrow that you are a better person and doing better at what you're trying to accomplish in life than you were yesterday, then that's a success, no matter where you are in your life. Whether that is, hey, I didn't take drugs today.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
You are a better person than you were. And that's something that my mom always strived to teach me and my brother. And I mean, she wouldn't say it as eloquently, but yeah, I think that is the best advice that my mom gave me.
Mm-hmm. I think that's awesome. And I love that you have the tattooed reminder of it so that you can kind of, it seems like it really affected your life. It was something that you're always kind of striving for and working towards. I think that's amazing.
Right. And it's kind of a joke too. People look at the tattoo and they say, "Oh, it looks like a 4 because it's greater than or equal to sign." So on sideways, it's like a 4.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, "Oh, what does the 4 mean? Are you like the fourth kid?" And I'm like, "No, it's my forearm." But
I gotcha.
So it's so dumb.
I like it. I'm into that. That's someday, that's like a dad joke. That's what a dad. That's
Oh, yes. I love dad jokes, but that's a different podcast. That's the dad joke podcast. I'm going to be on that next week.
Perfect. So I always like to talk to people about their grieving process. And I think this will be interesting. It's been 4 years since your mom's been gone.
Yeah.
And so I mentioned it a little bit at the top of the show. I know you said you use humor, but how has your grieving process been in the last 4 years?
I would say it's a consistent battle. I mean, it's gotten easier to talk about it, and starting right off the bat and talking about everything that happened right off the bat has helped.
Mm-hmm.
I feel, but I still think to this day that I wasn't really given time to grieve, to really process everything that happened. because the moment that she passed away, like I said, it was consistently just trying to sell the house for me and trying to find a new apartment, trying to do this, trying to do that, and I kind of in the craziness that was the first month past my mom passing away, um, I didn't have time, and I kind of just spent. Well, I mean, let's I'll go back a little bit because I got
Okay,
lost.
that's good.
But yeah, that entire first month past my mom passing, I didn't give myself the time, and I didn't have. Since then, I have worked so consistently and been doing things so consistently that it's like having time set aside to grieve hasn't happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, in this last year or this last year and a half, I've kind of realized there's still a lot of um, I wouldn't say negative feelings there, but there are some feelings that I haven't dealt with,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why uh, I've been doing a little bit more comedy. I've been doing a little bit more this and that, and trying to use my humor to deal with that in a positive way.
Sure.
So that's been my grieving process. 2.5 years later, um, I started, and then now 4 years later, I'm kind of feeling finally okay about everything.
Well, I mean, I get so frustrated when I read stuff about grief because, they say it's this like curve and you go through this thing and you go through this thing and it's never any of those things. Like it's all,
Oh yeah,
I could go through all those things in an hour. Do you know what I mean? Like what?
yeah, I know. Yeah, it's crazy. I think the best piece of advice that I got about the grieving process, I don't even know the woman's name. It was the night my mom passed. They, well, first off, because this is kind of sad and kind of dark, but I was taken to the police station because they thought it could have been a murder at first, and then they thought it was suicide, and then they realized that it was this. But I talked to some woman at the police station when the police were kind of going through everything that could have possibly happened,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and she gave me the best piece of advice, and I give this to everybody who's going through shit.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, stuff.
It's okay.
I don't know if I'm allowed to curse here.
I think that might be the first curse word that we've ever had, but
What?
I'm okay.
Okay. I curse. If anybody listens to my podcast, and they don't enjoy cursing, I apologize. I'm trying my hardest right now not to blow a lot of F bombs here, but
You did a beautiful job, Charles.
thank you. I try so hard. uh, but she told me that the way that I'm dealing with grief, dealing with my mom's death, is the right way for me,
Mm.
and that's going to be completely different than somebody else, and it's going to be completely different for this person. But the way that I'm handling it in this moment is the right way because I'm moving forward. Even if I'm moving back, I'm still moving forward. And I was like, that is like amazing. And I thought, like, thinking about this like years down the road, I'm like, that is such good advice for everything in life, that I'm dealing with it my own way, and it's the right way for me, even if I'm taking a couple steps back. As long as I'm moving forward, I'm moving forward. And I was like, that's perfect.
Oh yeah, that's an amazing piece of advice. And I think,
Right?
like, even now thinking about my own, situation, I always like to interject my story into other people's.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, but
No, you're fine. Yeah. How dare you? This is my hour.
dang it. But like my sister, she's different than I am. She,
Right.
She doesn't like to talk about it a whole lot. She's not against talking about it, but I'm like I'm like out there and I'll be talking to a random person and I will just bring up my mom because it's so important for me to, kind of keep sharing and keep her world alive in my world. But then my sister, she doesn't do that. And, I'm always like, I wish she would do that. But then I guess, she's doing what's right for her. So you actually helped me today, Charles. Thank you very much.
Oh, I'm so glad I could
You
help.
can send me the therapy bill later.
Yeah, it's my hourly is kind of rough, so I'll send you that bill.
It's all right. It's all right. It can't be with therapists that I actually do see. It's terrible.
Yeah.
So do you have, I mean, I think that's great advice. And I think that I hope everybody, takes that piece away with them. But do you have any traditions or anything that you carry on in her honor? Any way that you still try to keep her, around for yourself?
Yes. So, well, a few different things. I have her ashes. And this is really kind of dark, and I don't know if it's going to play very well on audio. I think it's hilarious.
Okay.
But when we got her ashes, you decide on what kind of urn that you want.
Mm-hmm.
My brother and I were like, oh my gosh, my mom loves books. She loves all this stuff. So we bought this beautiful, like, pink marble book urn. Well, beautiful. It looked beautiful in the book. Let's just say that, because when we got it, it was this giant thing that looked like a computer tower,
Oh, super.
like with a disk drive.
Like that big?
Yeah, it wasn't like big, but it was still like pretty large. It wasn't book sized by any means.
Oh.
So now I have this giant pink computer with my mom's ashes sitting in the corner, uh, and I think that's kind of, I look at it and I laugh, and it makes me kind of realize just the crazy weird story that's behind it. And so I have my mom's ashes. I also on October 11th, when the anniversary of her death, I take the day off. Not for myself because I can handle it, but for her. And I just play Bob Dylan all day. And I just let myself just sob, listening to Bob Dylan. Usually the Modern Times album, because that was one of her favorite ones. That was one of the first ones she introduced me to. So
that's beautiful.
Yeah,
I think that's amazing. I always ask this question. Sometimes, I believe that my mom visits me because I'm, whatever, like, and I, like, we don't have to get into like religion and stuff, like, but I,
right.
Sometimes, like, I see a cardinal and I'm like, all right, that's my mom. Like, it's just, I got these little weird things. Do you have anything like that at all? Or
Yes. Okay. So first off, I am staunchly, like, non-spiritual, non believer. I'm pretty scientific brain. But even then, there are some weird circumstances where I see things happen, and I don't have any off the top of my head, but I always it always catches me off guard when I'm like, that's a weird coincidence that happened. And yeah,
I like that. I think it's neat to have those little things. Like I haven't dreamed about her in a while, but I remember the first time I did, and it seemed so real. It seemed like she was there. And
right.
I woke up and I was so sad, and I was like, not sad. I was like, I felt good because I felt like I got to talk to her. But then I'm like,
yeah, exactly. That's happened to me multiple times, and I'm like, hey, I gotta hang out with my mom in my brain for an hour.
Yes, I love that. I'm so happy that happens to other people. I think that's a good thing. So, this is a tough one. And you can be as humorous as you want if you want. Like,
okay,
that's how you deal. And I'm into that. I like it. But is there any? I like to ask, like, are there any regrets or anything that you wish that you could say to her now that she's gone?
If yes, and I'll kind of use so at her funeral, I was the first one to speak. I was the only one with a written down speech, and I'll kind of say what I wish I had told her and thanked her for.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish I could say thank you for being such a pain in my ass,
Mm-hmm.
because if she wasn't consistently trying to help me become a better person, I wouldn't be here today. I mean, I probably would have committed suicide at some point. That's super dark, and I mean, we could talk about that on the suicide podcast that you're starting. But
you never know.
But that's what I wish I could tell her. Thank you for being a pain in my ass. Thank you for making me strive to consistently be a better person.
Well, I think that, I think that's super legit. Like, like people go through hard times, and people,
Yeah.
I mean, that's what a mom really is supposed to be for, right? Like, she's supposed to help you, and she's supposed to help get you through the tough times. And so I think that's amazing. Do you think she would be, like, proud of you for what you're doing?
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, I think I think she would be proud for how far I've come since being a hooligan teenager.
Mm-hmm.
Having I think so. I don't know. You never know. I think she would still be like, well, why aren't you further along and trying to push me even further? But I think overall, yeah, she would be happy to see right now.
I think she would too. I think, just from the work that I've heard you do on your podcast, and like, you seem like a really good person. So I'm sure that she would be And that's amazing. So anything else you want to say, or should we talk about your podcast?
So I mean, it kind of goes into that whole side of things is positivity.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm trying to bring into the world of my podcast. I mean, it's a stupid comedy podcast where we talk about movies, talk about theater, and we talk about video games, we talk about all these different things.
Mm-hmm.
But even with the terrible movies that we watch, when we talk about those, we try to be as positive as we possibly can about everything.
Okay.
Because it's art. In the end, these people are creating art. And even the most terrible movie has something positive about it because these people are creating something out of nothing. And that's amazing. So when you watch a terrible movie, you're like, oh, that was horrendous, but what was good about it? And I'm so tired of listening to movie podcasts where people are so cynical because the world has become so cynical. That's what I'm trying to move past, is cynicism of this world and try to be positive because there's so much to be positive about. And that's what I'm trying to do, is just slowly bring positivity back into the world.
I think that's awesome. And I think that's, I mean, I'm going to do a little short episode on, the different little pearls of wisdom, but I've just been having so much fun talking to people. But one of the ones that I wanted to do was, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. And I think that...
What is your mom's pearl of wisdom?
Oh gosh, my favorite one.
Mm-hmm.
She said, you take the best and you leave the rest. So it was her way of just saying, look, like, lots of crap happens to you in life, like there are good,
right,
there are bad things, but you should focus on the good stuff. So it's along the same veins of positivity that you're talking about.
Right.
And as an artist and as a creative myself, I've got my bachelor's in theater, and yay, jazz hands.
Yay, theater.
And I do music and I do art and stuff like that. And I think you're right. You do there's got to be something redeeming, some redeeming quality to every piece of something that, creativity that people put out there. It can't just all be cynicism. So I think that you're doing really good work. So it's called the Something Random Podcast.
Yes. So it's called the Something Random Podcast. It's all about entertainment. So we talk about movies, television, video games, theater. We kind of run the gamut. We don't limit ourselves. It is not safe for work, so just be aware of that when you listen to the podcast. We do have a tendency of dropping a couple F-bombs here and there, and making some not as family friendly jokes.
Mm-hmm.
So just be aware of that. But it's all in fun, and it's all to make the world a more positive place. And that's an offshoot of my business partner Michael, who's also on the podcast. Him and I's business. We run Something Random Media, which is a video production, photography, and audio business out of northern Colorado. And we work with all the theater companies. Well, I wouldn't say all of them, but a good majority of the theater companies to help them create video production work, whether that be filming their show or creating a commercial for them, or do that. We get to do what we love, and how many people really say that?
I know, that's awesome. Like that's why when I tell people I got my degree in theater, most people say, "What do you do with that?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, I started a podcast." That's
Hey, that's the best way to do it.
That's right.
Seriously.
That's right. So if people
also, I love your podcast. So sorry to interrupt you, but I love listening to your podcast. It makes me, like, when I listen to it, I've been sobbing consistently, and that's a good thing. Like but then again, I cry at everything. Let's be real here. I cry like commercials when I see a commercial that comes on, and like the family is getting along on the commercial, like, and I'm like, oh my god, they got their Cialis. Yeah. It's making me feel so good.
Well, thank you. That's so nice.
Yeah,
I'm a crier too. I'll see like an old couple holding hands, and I'll be like, it's just so, I mean,
I know. I tear up like if the horse is running in slow motion. Oh man, that gets me.
Oh, it's always the mane's all flowy. Let's not even talk.
I know. I'm like, it's just gorgeous and beautiful. I can't deal with this right now.
Well, I'm so glad that you listen, and your podcast is on my list of stuff I don't listen to around my children.
Right. Yep. Understandable.
I've got the like the murder shows and your podcast and some of the other comedy podcasts. Those are on one list, and then I've got Unexplained and like stuff that like is okay to listen to, and the kids.
What? Okay. So what is your favorite like family friendly podcasts?
I guess Unexplained. I like that guy's voice.
I don't know what Unexplained is. What is that?
It's a British dude. And he talks about like just weird random coincidences in the world and like not necessarily UFO. It got like the 2016. It won an award, so it's like popular. But it's I can't. It's Unexplained. I can't even explain what Unexplained is about. He just talks about phenomenon, like poltergeists and different things like that. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's not scary. Like I listen to a lot of murder podcasts, which may surprise some people.
I mean, we're both in the podcast we listen to group, right? Yeah, that's where we met.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody is obsessed with. Let's be real here. Everybody's obsessed with true crime.
Which I'm glad I joined that group because like I kind of felt like like I get done teaching a kids class in the morning. I get in the car and it's like, and then he cut her head off, and I'm like, oh, like I don't. I thought there was something wrong with me, but I realized that it's not. I'm not weird.
Right? No, it's a normal thing. We're all super intrigued by that stuff. I mean, look at Making a Murderer. And this is kind of like going into how I deal with my podcast. Look at Making a Murderer. Everybody is so intrigued by that show. Like, what do you feel is the reason why people are so intrigued by that show?
Super. I don't know. I tried to watch that show too, but I fell asleep. But I fall asleep during, like, I'm the type of person that puts a movie on and like 10 minutes later, I'm like,
right.
I think,
I know you like true crime, and you enjoy comedy. I would recommend, if you get a chance, you can't watch it around the kids, but American Vandal. It's a new Netflix show. It is hilarious.
I'm writing that down right now.
It's a fake true crime mockumentary.
Okay.
And it's so good. I can't recommend it enough. And it's definitely not for kids.
All right.
But just watch the trailer, and if it hits you in the right way, it's so worth it.
Okay, American Vandal. I'm excited about that. All right. Well, you know what? So Charles, if somebody wanted to get like in touch with you, or so they can find you on the Something Random podcast.
Pretty much, if you look up Something Random on any form of media, we're there. You can find us on Facebook at Something Random Media. You can find us on Twitter. It's SMTNG RNDM or THNG RNDM, or just look up Something Random on Twitter. You can find us on Podbean, where our podcast is located.
Mm-hmm.
You can find us on email. You can email us at info@somethingrandommedia.com. You can find us on our website, somethingrandommedia.com. Pretty much we're everywhere. I'm everywhere.
You have to be these.
Yeah, to try to. I mean, I'm trying to limit my social media. I posted about it this morning. I'm so over. I spent 5 minutes on social media this morning. I already hate the world. So I'm gonna try to step back a little bit and not spend so much time on Twitter because it makes me angry.
Good choice. Yeah. All right. Well, but if people wanted to contact you, then you would not hate it. But
yeah, you know what? I say that. I'm not gonna spend any time on social media. That's definitely a lie. Let's be real here. I'm gonna jump on immediately after this podcast to go on Facebook. Mm-hmm. Actually, I'm on Facebook right now. Let's be honest. I'm literally looking at Facebook right now.
Perfect. Well, we'll let you get to that. But I'm so happy that you came to do this, Charles. I thoroughly enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah, I love talking to you too.
I love the pearl of wisdom that you have for your mom. I loved the advice that you had for people that are going through grief. And I think that I'm really hoping that this helps other people, and they get a chance to hear how you deal with it with humor, which I think is super legit. Like, that's a great way to deal with things.
Thanks.
And I think you're awesome.
Oh, I think you're pretty rad too.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Charles. I had a great time talking with Charles today, and I want to thank you so much for tuning in and listening to the Pearls from My Mom, the podcast. I really hope you have a chance to go check out Charles's podcast. It is called The Something Random Podcast. It is very funny, and if you want an episode recommendation, I would say episode 17 is a standout for me. They talk about Star Trek, Batman and Robin. There's Owen Wilson impressions going on, and they talk about who would play you in a biopic. FYI, mine is Drew Barrymore. So if you need some comedy in your life, head on over to the Something Random podcast. It's very, very fun. As always, if you enjoyed our episode today, there are many ways to support our podcast. You can hit subscribe, share with your friends, and leave that 5-star iTunes review. If you are feeling particularly generous, you can head on over to our Patreon account and pledge a couple of dollars to get some great rewards. For questions, comments, suggestions, or if you'd like to tell your own story, my email is share@pearlsfrommymom.com. Until next time, I'm Jessica Hott, your host. Keep on sharing to keep the legacy alive.